Hey everybody, I'm Eric Switzer, and I'm here with the Queen of Gaming, Stacey Henley. Say hi, Stacey.
Hello.
We're going to kick off spooky season with an Alan Wake 2 preview. Today we're looking at two sections of the game. We're starting with one that features the game's new co-protagonist, Saga Anderson. This one is a little more straightforward, I think, than the Alan Wake section. But before we jump into it, Stacey, where are you at with the Remedy extended universe?
So I played Alan Wake at launch. I kind of liked it well enough, but
Mm.
it was really Control for me that was the thing that got me into Remedy's slightly strange and unique way of doing things. I think that was a 2019 game, and I think that was probably my favorite game that came out that year. I
Mm-hmm.
know it was a fairly thin year compared to the two that surrounded it, and that was always, you know, the reason why I've been excited for Alan Wake 2 hasn't so much been because I loved the first game so much. I enjoyed it, it was fine, but because I think they elevated the type of things that they try to do with the storytelling and the way they build environments in Remedy, and I'd love to get more of that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page. I really love Remedy's flavor, and I love how ambitious their storytelling is. I don't usually actually love playing the games.
Yeah.
Sometimes I say I love everything about Remedy's games except actually playing them. Uh, but this one might tip me over. What I've played so far, I was like, okay, this is a
Gonna say, because
video
this
game.
is you playing in these videos only. I've only seen the footage, but you've actually had a hands-on with this game.
Yeah, this is me playing. And I think the first thing you'll probably notice is how Resident Evil it is,
Yeah.
especially after 4 Remake came out this year. Um, we're back in Bright Falls investigating Cauldron Lake. Saga is here on behalf of, I don't know, a 3-letter organization, and she's investigating a cult. So doing some detective work and looking for a missing girl. There's a cult. They wear animal masks. They worship dark spirits. I think you can see where all this is going.
Yeah, it's very True Detective.
Very True Detective and very Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
And the gameplay matches. It's very survival horror, a lot more than the original Alan Wake. It's a lot of ammo conservation, battery conservation too, because you've got your flashlight to stun these guys. Right now, we're in this abandoned coffee theme park. She's looking for keys to get into this trailer park. The This is not the very beginning of the game, so I had to kind of piece things together as I was playing through this mission. But basically, Saga and her partner, who's played by Sam Lake,
Okay.
Remedy's Sam Lake, which we will probably get into a little bit more later. They've just arrived in this town and they're investigating this cult, but everyone is treating Saga like she's from here, lives here. They've known her whole life. That's such a great hook. Like that's all I needed, you
Yeah,
know.
there seems to be, from what I've seen and from what you've said, we're not really sure how real things are either. Because a coffee theme park doesn't seem like a very natural thing to do. It seems like something that a writer would make. Writers drinking coffee, having to hit deadlines and things. It it plays with a little bit of that, doesn't it? Like the fabric of how real this is, even to the characters who are experiencing it.
Yeah, and that comes into play really early in the first Alan Wake, and Saga's story. What I'm sort of gathering is it is the Redux, where
Yeah,
we're kind of following the same path through the first game, but with Saga, because it seems like she's aware that she's in a story and that this stuff isn't really happening, but you don't know what's real and what isn't, which is kind of part of the appeal of these Alan Wake games. Um, but I guess the thing that stands out to me that I want to get across to people is how much different, how much more Resident Evil the combat is.
yeah,
Because I think that's sort of the shortcoming of the original Alan Wake is that it's just not super engaging to play. It's like it's very like experiential and dreamlike, but then the actual like combat and gameplay is kind of whatever.
Yeah, how
Um,
when you say Resident Evil, I'm obviously watching this clip now. We're seeing a lot of enemies that are going down after one or two hits. Are there any kind of bigger enemies? 'Cause that's a big thing in Resident Evil. That sometimes you're better off not shooting at a thing because you've only got 3 bullets left and you know that won't work.
yeah, that's a good point, and something I am a little concerned about is like there isn't a lot of enemy variety,
Okay.
and that's true for the first game too. It's a lot of shadow people. The cultists are bigger and scarier. These are the Taken. These are just like people that have been corrupted by whatever the dark entity's up to.
Okay.
But then later on, I came across some like cultists that were more tanky, big guys in animal masks.
Okay. I suppose you said this isn't the start, but it's quite near the start of the game, so it would make sense that at the start you can kind of cut people down a little bit
Yeah,
easier.
yeah. This is definitely early on in the game. So here we're like reading what looks like lore, but we're actually like gathering clues, and it's something I have to touch on. Though I couldn't show a lot, unfortunately, because I want to talk about the mine place, which I
Yeah.
think that they've made a lot of in the marketing. I couldn't show a lot just because there were like previous cases on the case board, and they didn't want me to show any
Sure.
of that stuff. But I'm having a hard time with the mine place. I get what it's going for. Basically, it is a menu system that's live, like live gameplay. You don't the game doesn't pause when you swap to the mine place. Here I am in the mine place right now. You can go there anytime. It's basically the same thing as opening a menu, but you just swap over.
Okay.
And there you have your case board as well as some like other investigation tools, and you're gathering your clues and building your cases. And I know I didn't start at the beginning, so it wasn't like tutorialized very well. But I don't really get how it's supposed to work, and it's very confusing.
That's definitely a thing that can derail some of the Remedy games. They're so loaded with ideas that when they do get confusing, you are just kind of expected to follow it along sometimes. And sometimes it's kind of part of the appeal, that you kind of get lost and you find your way through. But when it's something is like a menu, you just want to know how it works.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to like gather my clues and move on to the next step, but I was getting hung up on like I need to progress the quest line, but to do that I have to go to the case board and move images around and get them in the right order to solidify what I've learned in the case. And I was just like, can I just shoot some stuff, please? But I'm hoping that'll make more sense later. We're looking at Alan's side now, which
Yep.
takes place in the dark place. So Alan's been trapped there for 13 years, which is how long it's been since the first Alan Wake came out. And this place is wild. There's a lot going on in Alan's side. One thing I wanted to mention is that for the most part, they say you can play the entire Saga campaign and then the Alan campaign, or you can start with Alan and then do Saga, or you can switch back and forth whenever you want. Like
Oh,
you
so
can
you
pretty
choose when
much,
you switch.
yeah, you choose when you
That's
switch, and you
interesting.
can do it however you want. I guess kind of like Resident Evil 2. Like there are these two companion campaigns.
Yeah. They
They
complement
said
each other, but they don't interconnect.
Yeah, like they said that there's like a beginning where you're switching back and forth where they teach you that, and then there's an ending where they kind of come together. But everything in between, you get to choose which one you do. This is Alan's version of the Mind Place, and
Right.
instead of a case board, he has a plot board where he's building the story.
Hmm.
Very high concept stuff. So we'll see how that plays out. But the dark place is really cool. So here he is. He was on the phone. Mysterious person told him to go to the Ocean View Hotel. You might remember from Control the
From
Ocean View Motel.
Control, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the Ocean View Hotel.
And
And
do we
he,
know if they're connected? Are they just similar names, or do you not know from what you've seen?
Don't know from what I've seen, but there's a reason they've got the same name.
Okay.
There must be. So he walked in the front door, went down a hall, and came right back out the front door. Right. So,
Right.
it's a lot of. I think he even says himself here, like trying to follow the dream logic
Yeah.
of the dark place. But what's so cool about it is that um, you have to figure out, like, you have to map the internal logic of the dark place and its level design. Like,
Yeah,
it's
so that there is a logic to it. It's not just random things will happen to you. It's you can figure it out.
it's one thing to like put somebody through like a maze and like, oh, a bunch of weird stuff's happening, but you can't find your way through this place unless you understand how it works. And I think that's a really cool, really unique approach to like surrealism.
Yeah, I
That
think
like
that's a big part of the appeal for me because you can have um you go into a room, you come out the back end of the room, the corridor's not there anymore. We've seen lots of games kind of play with that, but they are scripted. In Layers of Fear, it happens because that's
yeah,
what's supposed to happen at this point in time. But it seems from what you're saying that as long as you take the correct steps, you will reach the correct destination. You'll just have to go wrong a few times to figure out how.
how it all
Yeah.
fits together. Yeah. And this is one of those pieces. So he can like grab the light with this thing and move it from source to source. And when he does that, it shifts the environment and it happens instantly, which is a really cool trick. So it's a construction site. And when you put the light into a fixture, it turns into whatever that construction site's going to become. Here's a bar, you grab the light and it turns into this like unfinished bar, and that
Okay.
changes your access. Doors will appear that weren't there. Staircases are suddenly built that were just under construction before. And it's not like a time. I'm making it sound like it's like a time travel thing. It's not. It's just like different versions of what this
Yeah.
place could
And
be.
that obviously we're watching this on video, but just to be clear, there wasn't a cut there. That's you didn't like chop out a loading
Right.
screen just so it's easier to watch. That's how quick it works in the game.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's just like in the blink of an eye, you're looking at one thing, and then the light. You put the light there, and it becomes something completely different.
Cool.
Um,
Very
th-
next gen, new gen,
yeah,
current gen, whatever we're calling it these days.
whatever gen we're on.
Yeah.
And then most of this mission takes place in the Ocean View Hotel, where, and I had a hard time getting this across in the footage, but um, Alan is constructing a story about a ritual sacrifice.
Okay.
And as he adds plot points to that story, it reshapes the hotel. But not like so sometimes that's like creating a new hallway or like unblocking a hallway that's like covered in rubble or whatever, but other times that's like connecting one hotel room on the first floor to the bathroom of a hotel room on the second floor.
Okay.
So instead of taking the elevator to go upstairs, you have to learn, oh, well, room 111 connects to 236.
And it
that's
just
how I
happens.
go between
There's
them.
no stairs or internal logic to it. It's just you need to know that that's how this room is going to work.
Right.
And that's how you go up. Is that something that you control? I know you said like you have to learn how the logic of the thing works. Is it a thing that as you progress through the game you'll specifically unlock them in an order, or do you control how you move the hotel around to a certain extent?
It happens as the plot of the story he's writing
Okay.
unfolds. So you go to the plot board and you add an element and that changes the hotel. But
Right.
then you can shift between scenes of the story. I'm doing finger quotes. You can swap scenes of the story and that will change the shape of the hotel. So you can go back to a different state of the
Okay.
hotel and
Okay,
then
so it doesn't
go
necessarily
forward
build
to
on
it.
itself. You unlock more options.
Yeah, you unlock more options and then you're shifting the hotel around. So you go to one floor and then you change it back to go somewhere else that you were before. And you have to figure out how each different scene changes the shape of the hotel in order to get around.
Okay,
It's
that's cool. That's
wild.
a really cool mechanic. I think
Yeah.
that and the light.
Mhm.
I think we've seen a lot of AAA games recently where they give you big spectacles, but it's all very controlled. You kind of just
Uh-huh.
walk straight forward. That's something I know God of War especially was really criticized for. So having this not necessarily massively open and expansive like big open world games are, but letting you control it on such a small level feels a lot more creative use of traversal and exploration than just photorealistic and everything's huge.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like I get the sense that these because I finished this and it was like mission end, you
Yeah,
know, and I get a sense that they're these very self-contained chapters, but like they're just this one chapter. Like this was all one chapter, going from
yeah.
exploring the city, doing the light moving puzzle, and then reshaping the hotel. It was all like one chapter together. So like really there's a lot going on in one, and I hope that each chapter kind of has its own, like, I don't know, gimmick or like different mechanics.
Yeah, it's not going to be the hotel and the moving rooms around in the next one. It could be something to do with time. It could be something to do with linearity or height or something different
Yeah.
from just going from room to room. Some other way to that a writer might change the reality of the situation that they find themselves in.
Yeah. And also I know that this is not the beginning, but it is quite early, and there is some contact between Alan and Saga here. So they are like their stories aren't entirely separate,
Okay.
even though they have different things going on, and like for instance, the story Alan's writing is about a cult, but it's not the same cult as the
Right.
cult Saga's investigating, but they're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, very similar themes.
Yeah.
Um,
It's fascinating. And to a certain degree, it is pretty esoteric. I think that there's stuff that's going to go way over people's heads if they're not, like really keyed in, really paying attention to every line, and also really aware of the whole Remedy series.
yeah, I think at this point most people are going to be. I think Alan Wake has really led with the fact that it's part of Remedy's whole deal. The
Yeah,
trailers haven't really like this kind of Resident Evil style shooting that we've seen through this. That hasn't really been a big factor in the marketing for me. It's been the narrative and the mysteriousness of it, and the narrative layers over. It's a really fun game to play.
yeah. I think it's really important that you do play those other games, at least Alan Wake and Control. Strangely, there's some important stuff going on in Quantum Break 2, but it's kind of like Easter egg kind of stuff. But there's stuff in Quantum Break that gets referenced in just this mission that I played.
So there's probably more throughout the whole game.
Yeah. And that obviously that's a lot. Like Control's not a short game. Alan Wake's not a short game either. But I think if you're interested in this one, you'd be doing yourself a disservice to not play the whole thing and get really get what it's all about,
Yeah, I mean it's an obvious comparison to make, but Alan Wake has always been more like a novel in its approach to things. The whole Remedy kind of side of things with how they do kind of themes and narrative threads and things. So it's a little bit like reading the second book in a series. Game sequels tend to be a bit more standalone, and they kind of here's what happened previously, whereas books tend to have this understanding of everything flows from one point to the next.
Yeah. There's also a agent from the Bureau of Control who shows up in Bright Falls and is competing with Saga, tries to like take the case over from her. Yeah, so it's not just Easter eggs. It's like it's integral.
It's a core part of the story to be aware of how the universe operates.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm excited about it. It feels like a big step forward. I think Remedy's games are AAA, but they feel very like they've been on the line between double and triple, and this is a big budget game, no doubt about it. And it's our spooky season, you know.
Absolutely.
So what else are you gonna play? We don't have a Dark Pictures anthology this year.
We don't. We have Mario and Spider Man, which aren't particularly
Yeah,
scary.
not the spookiest October games. Yeah. Anything? Any other burning questions about Alan Wake? I played about 3 hours of it. This was just what I was allowed to share.
It kind of feels in its approach. I know we've been saying constantly kind of Resident Evil. You and I both love Resident Evil,
Yeah.
especially the fourth one for me, which this one seems very similar to. But all the things you're saying about the way the storytelling works, where you kind of got to pay attention, feels to me like it has more of the charm of something like Immortality, which I really
Oh
connected with, and
yeah.
I thought that was an excellent game. So it feels like it might be aiming for that kind of, even though it plays like Resident Evil, maybe it's
Mm.
playing more for that style of audience.
That's a really great comparison. As soon as you said that, I could see the connection for sure. It's I mean, Alan is like narrating his own journey, but framing it as a story that he's writing,
Yeah.
and just that element of narrative that's like so off the wall is like the you're running and gunning, but you're easy. It's very easy to get really pulled into the narrative just because it's so different from anything else.
Yeah, it feels like a much bigger swing than a lot of video games take. There's
Yeah,
the layers to it, the narrative idea that's not just about a story that happens to a man, but it's about what that story represents and what it means to be part of a story rather than just a hero is going on an adventure.
right. Even though it's even though the whole thing is just boils down to the hero's journey. I mean, the script that he's writing is the return. Like it's just the stages of the hero's journey. But I mean, that's part of it too. So, um, great. Really looking forward to this. We have a full preview on the site. We're going to have some more gameplay uploaded because I did capture a lot. So we'll have some more to share later. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And visit us at thegamer.com. That's the gamer, no spaces.